Muslims engaged in creating consciousness in America. MeccaOne.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to MeccaOne right here on this station. We're here and blessed to have Mr. George Galloway on the program. How you doing? Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Alaikum salam. Very glad to be with you.
How's your stay so far here in the States?
Well, it's been hard pounding physically. We've been in a different city every night, so flying early every morning, doing such media as we can, and then addressing big rallies in the evening. So it's been hard work, but it's been very productive. I discovered that there is, especially amongst the young people, a kind of peaceful, democratic intifada in support of the Palestinian people in their hour of terrible need. And it's a question of organizing that and giving it good and peaceful and democratic channels for expression. There are people who want to lure Arab and Muslim youth onto the rocks of separatism and extremism and even violence. We have to provide the antidote to that. And that means we have to show people that democratic and peaceful action can work. And that goes for action here or relief and solidarity action there.
You're born and raised in Scotland. Why is a man like yourself risking your life at times to stand up and defend the Palestinian struggle?
Well, I became involved in the Palestinian struggle entirely by chance back in 1975, so nearly 35 years ago. Someone called to our office to explain the Palestinian disaster, Nakba, and the consequent disasters, and I was mesmerized by that account of that injustice. I was then, as I am now, a fighter against imperialism, against colonialism. I come from a Scottish and Irish background. We know something about colonialism and being occupied and driven out. So there is a confluence of my overarching political views, my ideological position, and the fact that for me the Palestinian cause from the middle 1970s was personal. The people that were being talked about, killed, driven out, occupied, imprisoned, tortured, were not just a kind of abstract for me. They were real.
The path that you've chosen is a very unpopular one where the media, they don't want to interview. You lose a lot of friends along the way. So how do you kind of cope with all that? And how do you try to push your message out there? What vehicles do you use?
Well, of course, 1,500 people turned out in San Jose to hear me speak last night, and there won't be that many fewer, if at all fewer, in San Diego tonight. So it's not that unpopular. The point of view I'm expressing has a lot of support. It's unpopular amongst the power, and the power has the power to harm you. And I could show you my scars, but I'm ready to face that. As I said to Senator Norman Coleman of the U.S. Senate, now that he's been defeated by Al Franken, don't make the mistake of imagining that I'm afraid of you, Senator. I'm afraid of only God.
I understand you recently went to Gaza. What was that experience like for you?
We drove across 8 countries, 10,000 kilometers, many difficult borders, arriving on the birthday of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, on the 9th of March in Gaza, kissing the ground, being received by hundreds of thousands of people. It was a really significant red letter day. We took in 24 ambulances, a fire engine, trucks full of wheelchairs, medicine, food, children's clothes, blankets, tents, all the things that are desperately required there. But it's a drop in the ocean. $2 million was a lot for us to collect in such a short period of time, but it doesn't go far amongst 1.5 million people.
So what did you witness in Palestine? What was the situation like in Gaza?
It's absolutely devastating. It's like it's like an earthquake zone. The difference being, if it was an earthquake, all the governments of the world would be rushing to the rescue. But because it's a political and man-made earthquake and the victims are just Palestinians, it's left in exactly the state it was in when the earthquake hit. And the devastation, physical devastation is one thing, but the attrition, the attritive impact of the siege is really much worse. And because the Palestinian blood is being spilled by the pet rogue state of the Western Alliance, a double standard is applied. And it's that double standard that's driving the Muslim people crazy. And the nucleus of all of this is that Palestine was a country which was wiped off the map. Its people were scattered to the four corners of the earth. Millions of them now live as refugees, trapped in refugee camps, whether in neighboring Arab countries or in the so-called occupied territories. Unless these people can return to their homes, unless Palestine exists again, there will always be consequences, and those consequences will be ugly, and they are ugly. But the kill rate is 90-1. 90 Palestinians die for every one Israelis who die, and I don't want any of them to die. And we have to try and bring this to an end. But the only way you can have peace is with justice. No justice, no peace.
You like Obama.
I do.
And you like the appointment of Mitchell.
I think that was a good appointment, yeah.
Why do you feel that it's so important for the U.S. to be involved?
Because you're paying for it all. Every bullet in the back of a Palestinian child is paid for by the U.S. taxpayer. The United States gives $3,000 million a year to Israel. That's a country of 5 million people. 5 million people, the biggest recipients of U.S. aid in the entire world. Think of all the world, huge countries, huge continents, the great needs that they have. But you give more money to a 5 million strong country called Israel than everyone else. Then you give all the military aid. Then you have all the private philanthropy. Israel floats on a sea of U.S. dollars. And that's why people hate the U.S. for Israel's crimes, because they know that Israel could not commit these crimes if they were not being given the unlimited, blank check support of U.S. governments in the past. And we must hope that President Obama decides that we can't have business as usual with the Netanyahu and Lieberman government. We can't have business as usual because this is against our own interests.
What's your message to Muslims here, the youth living here in the West?
To be brave, to stay inside the law, to keep the actions that you take not only democratic and peaceful, but keep them to actions that are likely to win you allies and win you new supporters. We can do that. The enthusiasm, the skill, the level of education, the money that's here amongst the community can really make an impact. But it has to be unified. Unity is strength. And if we can find unity between people in the same state and between states and between different communities, if we can rebuild some of the alliances that we've lost, and if we can reach across the Atlantic, because our two countries are a central part of the problem, and that means the opposition to the policies of our two countries need to unite also.
What's next for you?
Well, I think that there's an audience here for me in the United States, not particularly because I'm great, but because the flatness of the surrounding landscape. You have to bring politicians from Britain 4,000 miles because US politicians are not able to speak on this subject in the way that I do. And that's really the fundamental problem. We will not have succeeded until you don't have to invite me to come and speak in the United States because you've got 10, 100, 500 US political figures that are speaking in the same way. So I'll be back in the United States on the 22nd of May in this area again. And there are many, they're coming in thick and fast now from all over the country, people asking me to come and speak. And I'm happy to do that if we can make the necessary arrangements. But it's no substitute for growing a US-based and domestic political cadre that can make the case in the same way that I can.
Thank you, Mr. George Galloway, and
Welcome.
may God give you more strength to do what you do.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks.